But thank you for coming. Gluten, grains, cholesterol seminar. Just have to lead off. Always consult your physician before making any changes or anything like that. Okay, I am a sports nutritionist, just going from previous experience and what I have learned so far. Okay, for those of you who don't know, I'm Jason Yan, owner of Group Warrior Fitness studio here and also downtown. And hopefully we will learn a thing or two. We will have open questions at the end. So if you want to save those to the end, write them down as we go through. Okay. Any questions before we start? Okay. All right. So what you are going to be learning in this presentation, okay, the relationship between carbs, body fat, cholesterol, the good and bad, and how we respond on the inside to the food we take in. Type 3 diabetes, what is it? What's gluten and why should you care? Modern diseases caused by a diet, high fat, low fat, high protein, all that good stuff. The best way to eat for health, longevity, and looking better naked. And the United States is ranked number 1 in healthcare spending and number 37 in overall performance. Okay. 22 out of 30 in life expectancy out of the major developed countries. So not too good. All right, so gluten's threat to humanity. Gluten is not just about intestinal health, as most people think it is. Gluten has been proven to affect neurologically, so affect your brain, your mental capacity. Dementia, Alzheimer's, epilepsy, headaches, depression, schizophrenia, ADHD, decreased libido has all been associated with gluten. Okay. And it is silent but deadly. Okay. So gluten, what is it? Right, so gluten is Latin for glue. Right? It's a protein found in grain. In bread products, it's made to hold and give the stretchiness and the chewiness to muffins, crackers, rolls, etc. It's found in wheat, barley, rye, kamut, and bulgur. It's one of the most common food additives. The most common is high fructose corn syrup, which you should also be avoiding. It's also found in cosmetics. So if you do have a cosmetic that has gluten in it, that gluten is getting into your body. It's being absorbed through your skin. And celiac disease is when someone gets an allergy to gluten that damages the small intestine. Estimates are anywhere from 1 to 200, all the way up to 1 in 30 people have had it. The majority of people will go undiagnosed for that. Okay. Once your genes get set off for celiac disease, it is a lifelong condition. It is irreversible. You cannot reverse it. Okay. Its stickiness attribute is what interferes with the breakdown and absorption of the nutrients. Okay. Poorly digested food leads to pasty residue in your gut, and that leads to the immune system sending an army at the place of that leads to your immune system sending an army over to take care of that, which causes you pain, sometimes in the form of stomach ache, headaches, nausea, diarrhea, constipation, all kinds of different symptoms. Okay. But silent attacks could be happening elsewhere. Okay. So continuing on with gluten, biggest problem is its interference with the body's neural networks. So gluten is linked to neurological harm in patients, both with and without evidence of celiac disease and gluten sensitivity. Hi. That's all right. Hi. Okay. And we all may be sensitive to gluten from a neurological, mental standpoint. Okay. Gluten breaks down in the stomach to become a mix of polypeptides that crosses the blood-brain barrier. And when that happens, it then binds to your brain's morphine receptors to produce a sensorial high. Okay? It's the same receptor as opiate drugs affect, so heroin, cocaine, that kind of stuff. So gluten is addictive. It's also the same place that sugar affects as well. Your brain on wheat. Okay. Again, digestion yields morphine-like compounds that bind to your brain's opiate receptors, which causes you a mild euphoria. When this effect is blocked or no foods are consumed, some people will experience withdrawal, and it's usually unpleasant. So if you ever tried to get off of sugar, get off of wheat, get off of caffeine, you usually have withdrawal symptoms. Okay. Blood sugar. Okay. Wheat actually increases your blood sugar higher and more than regular table sugar does. Okay. And we'll get into blood sugar a lot more in depth here and why why you don't want to have it constantly high. There are only a few foods that raise your blood sugar levels higher and faster than wheat does. Okay. It does mess with your mind. Okay. ADHD, right now there's currently 1/5 of high school boys that are diagnosed with that, and 11% of school-aged kids are diagnosed with that. Causes anxiety, Tourette's, mental illnesses, migraines, autism, dementia, Alzheimer's, and those are the things that have been are associated with wheat and gluten. Okay. Gluten sensitivity. Okay. It involves any organ, not just your small intestine. And gluten sensitivity with or without the presence of celiac disease, there's an increased production of inflammatory cytokines, which we do not want. We'll get into inflammation here more in depth and why it is one of the most important things that you should take away from here, this talk. Huge contributors to neurodegenerative conditions. And people with celiac disease are increased risk for mental delay, learning difficulties, tic disorders, and ADHD. Depression and anxiety are often severe with gluten sensitivity as well. Depression, leading cause of disability in the world, and depression is found in 52% of gluten-sensitive patients, 33% with people with celiac disease. Okay. Signs of gluten sensitivity: ADHD, alcoholism, ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, anxiety, loss of balance, autoimmune diseases, diabetes, arthritis, Hashimoto's, bone pain, brain fog, cancer, chest pain, constantly getting sick, dairy intolerance, delayed growth, depression, digestive issues, heart disease. And the list goes on. Hives, rashes, infertility, irritable bowel syndrome, malabsorption of food, migraines, headaches, miscarriages, nausea, vomiting, neurological disorders, seizures, epilepsy, and sugar cravings. Okay. All right. So, true or false? Just answer these questions, either true or false. No maybes. Okay. I eat bread. I drink fruit juice. I eat more than 1 serving of fruit a day. I choose agave over regular sugar. I get out of breath on my daily walk. My cholesterol is less than 150. I have diabetes. I am overweight. I eat rice or pasta of any kind. I drink milk. I don't exercise regularly. Neurological conditions run in my family. I do not take a vitamin D supplement. I eat a low-fat diet. I take a statin drug. I avoid high cholesterol foods. I drink soda. I don't drink wine. I drink beer. And I eat cereal. Okay. So those are the questions. If you are over 10, that means you're in the hazard zone for a neurological disorder. And once it can be prevented, but once it occurs, it is pretty much irreversible. Yes?
If we said true to 10?
Yes, if you said true to 10. Okay. But the more you said, if 0 is obviously a perfect score, but everything up to that is leading more towards neurological disorders and stuff. Okay. Anybody get 0?
No.
No. You got 0? All right. Okay. Inflammation. All right. Inflammation is the biggest problem, especially for brain disorders and basically all diseases and disorders. Okay. Antibodies of the immune system come in contact with protein or an antigen. Gluten is an antigen, and there could be others in the body. Every single disorder and every single disease is caused by inflammation. So it opens you up to a medley of health challenges if there is an inflammatory response in your body. Okay. Unchecked inflammation in person A could lead to obesity and chronic heart disease. Person B could lead to an autoimmune disease, and in person C could lead to diabetes. Person D could lead to Alzheimer's. Okay? So it's really just dependent on each person. It's a case-by-case basis, but pretty much it opens you up to everything. Okay? And this was Time Magazine's cover, The Secret Killer, the inflammation, the secret link between inflammation, heart attacks, cancers, Alzheimer's, and other diseases, and what to do about it. So it is a very serious issue. Okay. It should not be permanent. Okay. So there's two types of inflammation. The first one is acute inflammation. Everybody's basically experienced acute inflammation. So if you cut yourself, it scabs up, and the scab eventually goes away. So that's acute inflammation. If it does become permanent, it is toxic to your body, and it leads to, again, every chronic disease, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, obesity, all that stuff. Also opens you up to more colds, flus, fevers, short-term kinds of sicknesses. So the 4 horsemen of aging is oxidation, inflammation, sugar or carbohydrates, and stress. Okay, we've all experienced oxidation. So if you leave apple slices out, what happens to them? They turn brown. Okay, but free radicals basically attack the cells inside your body, and aging is basically rusting inside. So it's caused by free radicals inside the body. All right. Food and your brain. Okay. 1 in 100 people will get through life without any mental impairment. Okay. So the big ones are dementia and Alzheimer's, but there's also smaller versions of memory loss and stuff like that. Current USDA recommendations is 20% of your calories from protein and fat and 60% from carbohydrate. The origin of brain disease in most cases is predominantly dietary, so it is preventable. Okay. Carbs. All right. The American Diabetes Association in recommends between 60 to 70% calories from carbohydrate. So they upped that in 1994. It was 50 to 60%. Is it a coincidence from 1997 to 2007, the diabetes rate doubled from just under 10 million to just over 18 million? If you get diabetes, your chance of getting Alzheimer's increases 2 times. Okay. So Alzheimer's is now being called type 3 diabetes. So it is mostly dietary. Okay. If you have a diet rich in carbohydrate, your insulin pump is constantly on. And we'll get into insulin a little bit more in detail here. Figure out why you do not want that to happen. Your triglycerides levels increase, fatty acids decrease in the blood. Okay? So basically we want fatty acids in our blood at all times. Okay? So when you have fatty acids in your blood, that means you're burning fat at the time. Okay? When you eat carbohydrates, basically it shuttles the fatty acids back into the fat cells. They turn into triglycerides. Triglycerides make the fat cells bigger, and that's how you get fatter. Okay. All right. Carbs too. Okay, so when your blood sugar goes up, you have an immediate drop in your mood and brain regulators. Okay, so serotonin, epinephrine, norepinephrine, GABA, dopamine, these are all your feel-good hormones. Those all go down when blood sugar goes up. Okay, also your B complex vitamin drops, okay, and your magnesium levels also drop as well. Okay, so magnesium is very important. You don't want that to go down too often. Calcium and magnesium is pretty much linked together. If you're just taking calcium, you're in trouble. So magnesium helps push the calcium into the bone. Without magnesium, it basically calcifies your arteries. So very bad not to have magnesium levels up.
What is that word, make and, what is it?
B complex vitamins are needed to make neurotransmitters.
Neurotransmitters.
Yeah, so neurotransmitters are your mood and brain regulators. Okay. Glucose and fructose. Okay. Glucose, it can be processed by all cells, so muscle, liver, fat cells. Fructose can only be processed by your liver. Okay. It's especially bad if the carbohydrate is just pure liquid form. Fructose has no effect on your blood sugar levels. Okay? So again, it's processed by your liver, and basically all fructose is just processed in the liver and sent out to your fat cells. So fructose just makes you fat. Okay? Fructose also impairs your glucose tolerance, makes you insulin resistant, increases your blood fats, and increases your chance for hypertension. And it spins. Okay. Also leads to obesity because fructose does not trigger the insulin or leptin response. Those two hormones, we'll get into both of them a little later, but they're basically like the 5-star generals of your body. They control everything. So they tell you when to stop eating, tell you when you're full. Fructose doesn't set those hormones off. Okay. High fructose corn syrup is 55% fructose, 42% glucose, and 3% other. Okay. And over time, a few years or more constant fructose consumption leads to insulin resistance and increased storage of calories from fat. Okay. Fruit is okay. There's not as much fructose in fruit. Plus it's tied up with vitamins, minerals, and fiber. But if you are trying to lose body fat, try and limit your fruit intake to less than 3 per day. Okay. Sticking more with the berries are the best type of fruit. Highest antioxidant, highest fiber, highest vitamin, mineral content. Apples are good too.
I had blueberries this morning.
All right. Glucose raises blood sugar levels. Okay. So once that happens, insulin comes out to basically tell your fat cells to get ready to store. But it will first push the glucose into your muscle and your liver cells, but there's only a certain amount that those can hold. Once those fill up, then it pushes it into the fat cells, making the fat cells bigger. And over time, fructose consumption will lead to more and more storage of fat as well. So it's basically a merry-go-round type of process. And then here's a little chart. So table sugar is 50% glucose, 50% fructose. So it basically goes into your stomach here. It pumps out the liver, sends out insulin and glucose, and then it pumps it into the fat cells after the muscle and liver cells are filled. With fructose, it comes into the stomach, it goes into the liver, and the liver just pushes it right into the fat cells. Carbs from veggies, so green leafy veggies, cauliflower, eggplant, all that good veggies, non-starchy veggies. They're tied up with fiber, it slows down the process. They have lots of water weight, vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients. It dilutes the blood sugar response. So veggies are good. Okay. The biggest blood sugar rushes are the most fatty. Okay. So again, like I said, wheat actually increases your blood sugar faster than table sugar. So breads, cereals, pastas, rice, potatoes, corn, it's all increasing your blood sugar levels very, very fast. Okay. Liquid carbs are the worst. Okay. So soda, beer, fruit juices. In a can of Coke, there is actually 80 grams of fructose, and in a can of apple juice, there is 85 grams of fructose. Okay. So you do not want to drink fruit juices. Even if you juice, you do not want to just juice your fruit. So that you're basically just drinking fat. Okay. Constant high blood sugar levels leads to deformed proteins in the body. Okay. Diabetes patients have demented proteins in their pancreas, cataracts in their eyes, cystic fibrosis, CFTR protein, and emphysema is the liver protein. And the reason for that is glycation. Okay. Advanced glycation. Okay. Advanced glycation end products, or AGEs for short. Okay. So it's basically renegade sugars coming into the body and hooking up with proteins in the body, causing them to go rogue. So if you think of proteins in the body, proteins are smooth and slippery. So imagine trying to catch a fish in the water with your bare hands. Kind of hard to do. And then sugars are gooey and sticky. So think cotton candy. Okay. So when you eat carbohydrates, sugars come in, they stick to the protein, causing them to deform. And once that happens, so they're now glycated proteins, they can't fit through the capillaries and the regular blood cells. So that is very bad, and it causes inflammation. Okay. Also causes premature aging. Okay. High sugar diet increases AGEs. So number one source of calories for Americans is high fructose corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup increases glycation by 10 times. So, okay, so glycation, two things happen. Your cells are a lot less functional, and there's a big increase in free radicals. Okay. Your cellular function goes down, and there's eventually cellular death. Okay? So when free radicals come in, they cause oxidation, which leads to inflammation, which opens you up to pretty much everything. Okay? The destruction of tissues, destruction of DNA, and destruction of healthy proteins. You also have cognitive decline, kidney disease, diabetes, vascular disease, aging. Okay. Glycation is a normal process. It can't be stopped, but we can reduce it. So number one way is to reduce sugars and carbohydrates. All right. Insulin. Okay. Glucose used as energy. Okay. So if you imagine a football field, 100 yards. So basically, we've only been using glucose as energy, as our main energy source for the last half yard. Okay. All the previous, before that, we were using ketones, which I'll get into. Okay. So starches and sugar convert to glucose to be used as energy. Insulin is then released from the pancreas to help shuttle that glucose into the cells. Okay? So it'll shuttle it into the muscle cells and the liver cells. Once those fill up, then it'll shuttle the excess into the fat cells. Normal cells have high sensitivity to insulin, so those are healthy cells. But cells can become desensitized, and that's when you basically become insulin resistant. Processed food, sugar, grains are going to speed that process along the most. Okay. Walk into a mirror or wall. That's just a simple test. Obviously, the best way to find out if you're insulin resistant is just get a test through your doctor or physician. I think they have in-home tests for that as well. But to walk into a mirror or wall, just walk straight into a wall. If your belly hits before the rest of your body, you are probably insulin resistant. Okay. So when insulin resistance happens, your cells ignore insulin, and a lot of it fails to go into the cells. In response, your pancreas pumps out more and more insulin to try and put it back into the cells. Okay. So now more insulin is required to get the same effect as before. And it becomes a cyclical problem. If that keeps happening and keeps getting worse and worse, eventually it leads to type 2 diabetes, which is 95% of all diabetes cases. Okay. Eventually it will lead to inflammation and obesity. And insulin is an anabolic hormone. Okay. It doesn't go into the muscle cells, it goes into the fat cells, making them bigger, causing them to inflame and open you up to all types of diseases and sicknesses. Yeah. High insulin creates problems for other hormones as well, which cascades. Okay. Insulin resistance leads to the formation of plaques in the brain, which basically takes the place of healthy brain cells. So it kills off healthy brain cells and plaques up, which is not good. And obese and people with type 2 diabetes, again, 50% greater risk of developing Alzheimer's. Okay. Insulin resistance also raises triglycerides, blood pressure, and lowers your HDL. Okay. So HDL is known as the good cholesterol, at least for the next 10 minutes. Okay. The wall test again, insulin resistance is reversible, okay, so it's not permanent. Right. High blood sugar also shrinks your brain. Okay. Starches and sugar convert to glucose to be used as energy. Get tested, that's the best way to find out. Your fasting insulin test will tell you that. That's the first thing in the morning before your first meal to figure out your fasting insulin. So don't wait until it's too late. Okay, and diabesity. So this is a term in the next decade. 1 in 2 is suspected to have. It's a metabolic imbalance. 90% of people will not be diagnosed. Okay. All right. Had to throw in an exercise slide here, so your brain on exercise. One of the best ways to change your genes, we are capable of changing up to 70% of our genes by the lifestyle choices that we make. Okay? Exercise turns on and increases your BDNF, which is your brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is your brain's growth hormone. Okay? Reverses memory decline, increases growth of new brain cells. Exercise builds a brain that is actually resistant to shrinkage and actually enhances your cognitive ability. Okay? And our genes expect frequent exercise. Physical activity actually helps control the inflammation inside your body, increases your insulin sensitivity, and influences better blood sugar control. Okay. It reduces the glycation of proteins as well, and helps to expand your memory center, boost BDNF, okay, and that's exercise. All right. Your brain on sleep. Okay. Every system in the body is affected by the quality and the amount of sleep that you get. Okay. It can dictate the amount that we eat, how fast or slow our metabolism is, how fat or thin we get, if we can fight off infections or not, how creative, insightful we are, how we cope with stress, how we process information, how we learn new things, how organized we are, our memory. Sleep deprivation alters 711 of our genes. Okay. Leptin hormone, which is the other hormone, which is the other 5-star general with insulin, coordinates our body's inflammatory response and determines if we crave carbs or not. Okay, so it's very much impacted by sleep. Okay. Influences all hormones, all other hormones, and controls all functions of the hypothalamus in the brain. Okay, it's found in the fat cells. And here's a crash course in leptin. Okay, so leptin is basically the gatekeeper. Okay, it's a powerful controller over our emotions and our behavior, especially when it comes to eating. Okay. Healthy levels are good. They prevent most diseases of aging. It is essential in the control of your metabolism. So leptin controls your thyroid, which controls your metabolism, and leptin oversees all of your energy stores as well. Okay. Decides to make us hungry or not, decides to burn fat, or it decides to store fat. Decides how creative and insightful we are. It directs the inflammatory response, so it decides where to send the army to fight the inflammation. When the stomach is full, fat cells release leptin to tell the brain to stop eating. Although in some people with low leptin levels, they'll just keep eating, especially more towards the carbs, sweet, salty, starchy types of foods. Sleep deprivation is the #1 way to turn leptin levels down. Low leptin turns up the inflammatory response, especially for brain disorders, mental health problems, and neurodegenerative diseases. Okay. Like insulin, both are 5-star generals. So biggest detractors to those two hormones are carbohydrates, and with leptin it's sleep and carbohydrates. Okay. So more carbohydrates, more out of whack your leptin levels will get, and also your insulin levels. So leptin resistant, you stop hearing leptin's message. Same as insulin resistant, you stop hearing insulin's message. Okay. Body's more acceptable to disease and the inflammatory process. You have elevated triglycerides, obesity and weight gain, and the only thing that balances leptin is sleep and and nutrition. Okay. So are you leptin resistant? Okay. Being overweight, unable to change how your body looks no matter how much diet and exercise you do, unable to lose weight or keep it off, constantly craving comfort foods, fatigue after meals, feeling constantly anxious or stressed out, feeling hungry all the time or at odd hours, tendency to snack after meals, high fasting triglyceride levels greater than 100 milligrams per deciliter, osteoporosis or bone pain, problems falling or staying asleep, high blood pressure, regularly craving sugar or stimulants, and presence of love handles. Okay. And then this is just a picture of insulin resistance. So looks kind of the same: fatigue, constant hunger, ability to lose weight, craving for sugar, all that stuff. Okay. It's kind of old, so they still have high cholesterol and triglycerides on there. All right, so on to cholesterol. Okay, so cholesterol lies. Right, your body loves good fats and cholesterol. Okay, 2% of your body's weight is in your brain, and it contains 25% of all the cholesterol. 1/5 of your total brain weight is cholesterol, and while you are at rest, 22% of your energy is being used by your brain. So if you have low cholesterol, you're not fully using your brain. Okay. Fat is the preferred source of fuel for the body and human metabolism, not carbohydrates. It's waving. Okay. Right. There has not been one study that proves that cholesterol leads to heart disease, or that lowering it will prevent heart disease. Okay. Everything went wrong in 1956. That was when the American Heart Association recommended the prudent diet. Switch from butter, lard, eggs, beef with margarine, corn oil, chicken, and cereal. Okay. Then in 1977, dietary needs for the U.S. Told you to lower your fat consumption, especially of saturated fat, and replace that with vegetable oils. Right. Primary cause of heart disease is inflammation. Okay. So primary cause of insert here is inflammation. Okay. And this is the chart for the cholesterol. I think it's even lower now for desirable. I think it's under 180, but higher than 240, you were considered to have high cholesterol. In between 200 and 239 is borderline. Okay, so what does cholesterol do? Cholesterol forms cell membranes. Okay, you have trillions of cells in your body. It affects your ability to grow new synapses in the brain, so how well different brain centers communicate with each other. Neurons need it to submit information to the other parts of your body. It is a facilitator for the brain to communicate and function properly. It's an antioxidant for the brain, so it fights free radicals that come in there. So reduces oxidation and inflammation in the brain. It's a precursor for estrogen, testosterone, and vitamin D. Okay, so without cholesterol, we do not make any of those things, and all of them are vital to life. Okay. Also helps with the digestion of fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. And every single cell has a way to make its own supply. So that's how important it is. Okay. How smart you are and well you remember things is also affected. Low cholesterol puts you at much higher risk of depression, and the lower you go, the closer you get to thoughts or attempts of suicide. Okay. Cholesterol in the diet has little effect on your total blood cholesterol levels. It is made by the body, so your majority is made in the liver. If you eat less cholesterol, your liver is just going to make more. Lowest levels of cholesterol open you up to the most problems, including death. It's used to fight off infections. When you have an infection, HDL levels fall because they are being sent to the site of inflammation to help fight. A lot of the other cholesterol goes there to fight as well, but that was kind of the reason why cholesterol was blamed for heart disease and all that stuff. But it was helping rather than hurting. Okay, so it was kind of like blaming, if you blame a fireman for the fire. Okay, doesn't make any sense. All right. Cholesterol studies. Okay, Lionheart study, 76% reduction in cardiovascular deaths without changing cholesterol levels at all. Nurses' Health study, 82% of coronary events occurred because of 5 factors, and not one was cholesterol. And the Japan study, group with the lowest levels died at the highest rate, and the risk of dying from any other cause was lowest in the group with the highest cholesterol. All right, HDL, which is known as the good cholesterol, but not anymore. Okay. There are different types of HDL particles. So HDL2 particles are anti-inflammatory and anti-arthrogenic, so they prevent atherosclerosis. Okay. HDL3 is the more inflammatory one, so that is the bad HDL. Okay. Still more research is needed. So you want a higher ratio of HDL2 to HDL3, but they do not know the exact ratio that you need yet on those. All right, LDL, the bad cholesterol. Not anymore. Okay. Like HDL, there's different types of particles. So LDLA particle is large, fluffy molecules and does absolutely no harm to the body at all. Okay. LDLB is the small, dense, hard molecules that promote atherosclerosis. So that is the bad LDL. Okay. High LDLA is good, LDLB is bad. There are blood tests that can test for the different particles now for both HDL and LDL. Once LDLB becomes oxidized, that's when it's really bad for clogging up your arteries. Okay. And B is only bad if it becomes oxidized. Okay. The better way to judge your risk for cardiac heart disease is your triglycerides to HDL level. So if you have a ratio of 2, that's optimal. If you have 3 or more, that basically means you're insulin resistant. And if you're 5, you're in deep, deep doo-doo. Okay. High triglyceride levels correlate to high level of LDLB particles. And what LDL does is it carries the cholesterol to the cells that need it. Okay. HDL then picks it up, picks up the excess and takes it back to the liver. And most doctors will look at total LDL. If it's slightly higher than it should be, you'll get a prescription pad for Lipitor or statins. Okay. So, on to statins. Is anybody taking a statin? Okay. All right. What they do, so this is from the actual drug companies, this is their quote, they cut off cholesterol production in the blood, in the body. Okay. It's supposed to be yellow. They're anti-inflammatory. Okay, so that is their number one benefit, not lowering cholesterol. Okay? But you can reduce inflammation naturally. You don't need a statin. Okay. 2004, the optimal levels of cholesterol was lowered, and the people that voted on that, 8 of the 9 people on the board were tied to statin drug companies. Okay. Coenzyme Q10 is the most important nutrient for your heart. Okay. It's a vital nutrient that's made in every cell of the body. If that level falls, so does your overall health. It's a powerful antioxidant. It's needed for the strong pumping action of the heart. And statins will deplete coenzyme Q10, which will cause muscle pain, weakness, loss of energy. Your body cannot survive without coenzyme Q10. Heart has the highest concentration of it. If you're on a statin, or you know somebody's on a statin, they need to be supplementing with coenzyme Q10. Okay. Cholesterol determines how smart you are and your memory. Okay. And they're now recommending statins for children. So I don't know if you remember, but type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset diabetes, but since so many children are getting it, it's just called type 2 now. So now they're recommending statins for children, which is ridiculous. So full brain development does not occur until a person is 25. All right. These are just some stats on statins. 48% increased risk of diabetes for women who are on statins. Statins handicap the liver's ability to make cholesterol. You're always negatively affected in cognition or neutral. So people that are on it, their cognition, memory, and all that stuff goes down. Lowers testosterone, and that is equally important for women as well. Biggest risk factor for impotence is low cholesterol. Okay, statins lower cholesterol and also testosterone. Okay, highest risk factors for heart disease. So there's 5. Does anybody know what they are?
Obesity?
That's one. Anybody?
Heredity.
Smoking is number 1.
Heredity.
No. Anybody else?
Lack of exercise.
Yeah. So smoking is number 1, excess alcohol number 2, lack of exercise number 3, overweight number 4, and diet high of carbohydrates number 5. Okay. This is a test, hemoglobin A1C. It's protein found in red blood cells, carries oxygen, and binds to blood sugar. Binding is increased when blood sugar is elevated. Okay. So this test gives you the best indication of your average blood sugar level has been over the previous 90 days. That slide should have been a little earlier, but that's a test that you can do for that. So, glycated hemoglobin, high risk for diabetes, stroke, cancer, death, and a lot of other stuff. All right, carbs raise cholesterol. So 75 to 80% of blood cholesterol tests is what your body makes and not what you eat. We all make 2,000 grams of cholesterol per day. If you restrict cholesterol, your liver senses that and it produces HMG-CoA reductase, which helps use carbohydrates to produce excess cholesterol. Okay. That is the same enzyme that statins target. That stuff at the bottom was on another slide, it should not be there. But it's the same enzyme that statins target, so basically it just turns off the body's ability to make cholesterol. All right, so eating for health. Okay. We can break down fat into ketone bodies as energy. Okay. Right now most people use glucose as their main fuel source, so carbohydrates. That's That's what most people do, and then you can also use protein to break down into glucose, which is known as glucogenesis. But we don't want to do that because that steals muscle from the body. And muscle is one of the most important things for a fast metabolism. Okay. It takes about 3 days for the liver to start to use body fat and create the ketones that you need for energy. And beta hydroxybutyrate, beta HBA, is the primary ketone. It's basically a super fuel. It's more efficient at producing ATP energy than glucose. So ATP energy helps you perform workouts, super hard activities, helps you go on a walk and not get fatigued, all that good stuff. It improves antioxidant function, increases number of mitochondria, and stimulates new brain cells. MCTs, medium chain triglycerides, are a precursor for it. So coconut oil is the best thing for that. Okay. Coconut oil, in my opinion, is the best cooking oil. Also, if you're looking for a gluten-free moisturizer, aftershave, that's what I use. So it's pretty awesome. I also use it as a dog treat. They like coconut. Okay. Most important fats. Saturated fat. Okay. Every cell in your body requires saturated fat. Heart muscle prefers it for nourishment. The bones need it to put calcium into the bone and not your arteries. So again, I covered that before. Magnesium also needed to push it into the bone and not into the arteries. Raises cholesterol, but it raises the HDL levels, the good ones, and the LDL-A, which is the good LDL. Okay. It has no effect on cardiac heart disease, and only a modest effect on cholesterol, so raising the good HDL and the good LDL. You have less coronary atherosclerosis. More carbohydrates equals the highest atherosclerosis. Replacing saturated fats with high glycemic carbs will increase your risk for cardiac heart disease 33%. Okay. Saturated fat also lowers your triglycerides and raises HDL2 levels. Vegetable oils are very inflammatory. They're probably one of the worst, so they're usually already oxidized when you purchase them off the shelves, and then when you heat them up, they become even more. Okay? So you want to avoid those at all costs. Okay. Most important fat 2. 2/3 of your brain is made of fat, and 25% of it is DHA. So DHA is the omega-3. So omega-3 is made of 3 fats: DHA, EPA, and ALA. So DHA is important for the brain, EPA more important for the heart, ALA all around. Okay. Regulates inflammation in the brain. It can also fight in the gut. It helps productions, connectivity, and viability of the brain cells while enhancing function. Not as good as omega-6 fatty acid, which is found in plants and vegetable oils, but it is still essential. Okay. We need it. It's very inflammatory. DHA and omega-3 are the opposite. They are anti-inflammatory. Okay. Omega-6 increases oxidation of LDL. So remember, LDL-B is not bad until it actually becomes oxidized. Okay. And the ratio you're supposed to be getting is 1:1 to 4:1, omega-6 to omega-3. We actually get anywhere between 15 to 20 to 1, and I've actually seen as high as 30 to 1. Okay. And omega-3s are essential, so the body can't make them, so you have to eat them through your diet or supplement. Okay. All right. Visceral fat. Okay. This is the worst fat to have. This is the fat stuck around your organs. Okay? It's very inflammatory. It disrupts your normal hormones, especially with insulin and leptin. It gets dumped into the liver, which causes a new war. You don't want an inflammatory war going on inside your liver. It does too much, too many good things for the body. It's linked to obesity, metabolic syndromes, as well as cancer, brain diseases, and autoimmune disorders. Okay. Cleansing is the best way to get rid of visceral fat. And final slide I didn't put on here, but trans fats is one of the worst fats that you can have. There are natural trans fats that's found in grass-fed beef, but you want to always be checking the ingredients. So if it has hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils in it, okay, there is trans fats in it, regardless if it says 0 trans fats and all that stuff. So you want to avoid trans fats at all costs. Very inflammatory, very oxidating. Okay? So, does anybody have any questions?
Go back to the lipids. How do you pronounce it?
Leptin?
Yeah. So you said only sleep and nutrition. What are the types of nutrition that raise those levels?
That raise those levels?
Yeah, because you want more.
Right. You don't want to eat diet high in carbohydrates. You want to stick more with proteins, good fats, vegetables.
Better diet.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
We're still processing.
Still processing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That leads us to our next challenge. Okay. So the keto gluten-free challenge. Fat is my friend, carbs are my enemy. Okay. Starts March 3rd, goes to April 1st. 30 days. It's about finding out what foods are damaging to you. Weight loss will be a byproduct, but it will occur. Keto gluten-free manual, so you get hows, what, why. You get recipes, you get symptom sheets, so you do it before, you do it after. So write down your symptoms before, write down your symptoms after. So I guarantee you they'll clear up. You have a shopping guide, tracking guide, gluten-free infographic, and private Facebook accountability group. Okay. So everybody that's registered, I will send out a email about that, and you guys can take a look at the challenge and all that good stuff. Okay. Any questions?
Great.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming.
What's the gist of the plan?
Stay away from gluten and grains.
No sugar.
Yeah, no sugar.
No grains.
It's 30 days.
Yeah.
I gotta buy some coconut oil, so I gotta.